ChatGPT has taken the world by storm and it's unlike anything we've ever seen. People are using the AI bot to learn how to program, answer daily life questions, and even help them craft resumes. But before we get into the details, make sure you hit that subscribe button and never miss an update on Grizzle's YouTube channel. It's gotten a $10 billion investment from Microsoft since launching, Google's issued a code red on concerns it's coming for its search engine business, and the public's torn. They don't know how to react. Is this thing coming for my job, or is it going to increase my productivity? Now, skeptics are saying it's just a fad. It's the next Clubhouse. In 12 months, people will forget about it. But what do the numbers say? ChatGPT added 1 million users in its first week of launching and grew up to 21 million users at the end of December. And it's currently expected to hit 1 billion users by the end of 2023. That's nearly half of Meta's user base, and they've been around for over a decade. So clearly there's a lot at stake for this new AI program. Let's get some perspective from someone who spent their entire holidays programming with ChatGPT, Dan Schipper. He's the CEO and co-founder of a company called Every. Dan, thank you for joining us. And before we get into your experience with ChatGPT, could you just describe to our audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Every. Every is a daily newsletter. We publish one essay a day. It's sort of long-form writing about AI, business, and productivity topics. We were, staffed by a crew of writers that sort of are a mix of being practitioners and writers. So they build stuff, they work in tech companies, and they also write about it for us. And so we sort of have that mix of content on our newsletter. And I specifically, I write a lot about AI, productivity, tools for thought, how you can use AI to, improve your work life and improve your personal life, do journaling with it, all that kind of stuff.
And so you're the perfect person to speak to about this because clearly ChatGPT has taken the AI industry by storm, and you actually spend your holidays programming with ChatGPT and using their software. So can you just tell us a bit about your experience?
It was really cool. It was a very mind-blowing moment. I've been familiar with the AI tools that have been coming out for a while, but I think it was the first time where I really used one of these tools and I was like, holy shit, it can do so much that I didn't realize it could do. In particular, I think I was using it to program. So I had a bunch of ideas for little apps I wanted to build that used AI. And I used the AI to build the AI apps. And it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, you just write in natural language, here, build me this thing, build me a chatbot app. And it just spits out the code. And all of the code is stuff that I probably would have been able to do myself. But it would have taken me like a few hours to get it done. And with ChatGPT, it was just like in 3 minutes, I had the working bare bones version of an app that I needed. And, I spent a long time kind of refining it and going back and forth with it in sort of a conversational format. But it was really impressive that it just spit it out immediately, something that was working.
And so it clearly increased your productivity. How did it impact you as a programmer? And do you think that it will change, the way programmers operate or function in the future?
It makes me a lot smarter and faster. I think if you're not technical right now, it's not good enough to make up for that. You have to understand what it's doing in order for you to use it at all for programming. But if you're technical enough to build all the stuff yourself, it lets you build the same things in less than half the time, 10% of the time. It's pretty wild. It has some limitations. It's not really good with large code bases yet. It often gets things wrong, so you have to pay attention to what it's doing and know how to fix it. But it's incredibly useful. It makes me way smarter. If I'm programming without it, I feel like a worse programmer because I am. So it's really useful.
And so you said there were some limitations with it. I'm just curious, what were the biggest pros and cons you experienced when using ChatGPT?
It's very good at it's like I said, it's very good at helping you get started on something and sort of spitting out a boilerplate that's pretty good. I think the drawbacks are that it gets things wrong, and it makes things up sometimes. So you have to be really careful to know whether or not what it's spitting out is actually right. And you can find that out by just trying to run it. That's the nice thing about programming is when you run it, if it doesn't work, you're like, okay, why is it not working? Is it making stuff up? I think there's a lot of things that are sort of subtle that it gets wrong. So for example, a lot of times when you're programming, you're using libraries or other pieces of code that developers have put out into the world that anyone can use. And the libraries have different versions. And sometimes GPT-3 or ChatGPT doesn't understand which version of the library you're using. And depending on the version, you might use the library differently. And so you can kind of get stuck in these rabbit holes where it's very confused about what you're actually doing and giving you the wrong suggestions. So that's why you kind of need the like expert programmer level ability to like understand when it's getting stuck. But for now, especially if you are an expert, that's not very costly. It's like, I can kind of see, okay, it's not working, it's not running, why is it not working? And I can try to solve it myself, or I can Google for it. So it's a little annoying. It's sort of like having a junior employee who's like extremely excited and enthusiastic and pretty smart and often brilliant, but like often just totally wrong. And you're just managing that, and that's kind of fun.
And I know a lot of people are saying it can increase productivity, but its big controversy is that it's going to wipe out a lot of jobs. Do you see that being a risk in the future?
I think that's a really important question. I honestly don't know. And I think it's very important that people who are building the technology or using it or writing about it are aware of the potential negative impacts of like this type of thing on the work that people do. It's definitely not at a point where it's taking anyone's job right now. And I think the way that work works is that once you can do more in a shorter period of time, the work sort of expands. Like you end up doing more, companies end up wanting to build more stuff. And so I don't actually see it, especially in the short term, like actually replacing people. But as it gets better, I think that's a like sort of a societal conversation that needs to happen. Like, what do we do with a tool like this that can replace some parts of what people do every day?
Now, just bigger picture here, where do you see ChatGPT revolutionizing the most? Is it developers, search engines, programmers? Like where will it have the biggest impact?
I think I think it's huge for programming. I think it makes programmers much more efficient. It means you can build more stuff, especially sort of like as an individual. Like if you're just an individual programmer out there trying to build projects, like you're going to go way faster than you would without it. I think it's really interesting for writing. At Every, we built an AI writing app called Lex that it's sort of like Google Docs with an AI writing assistant inside of it. And it's very helpful for a lot of the things that people get stuck with when they're writing, like looking at a blank page, it sort of fills the blank page in for you, or coming up with different ideas for how to continue a section you're writing. It's very good at all that kind of stuff. So I think it's really good for writing. I think it's also quite good, and I've been using a lot for this at like journaling and helping make decisions and helping like find patterns in your thinking. It's very good at like asking interesting questions and reflecting back to you things that it's hearing in what you're writing. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff for sort of personal development type topics too. But I'm honestly hard pressed to talk about a place where it's not going to be at least somewhat useful, at least right now.
Now, I also want to ask you about this Microsoft investing $10 billion in OpenAI, the company that runs ChatGPT. Now, Google is concerned that it's going to give Microsoft a competitive edge against their search business. What's your thoughts on all this?
I mean, I think Microsoft's in a great position. It seems like a very good deal for them if you want to make a like large cap bet on on one of these players to capitalize on the AI wave. I think Microsoft's a really good bet. I think Nvidia is also a really good bet. All of it's running on their hardware. As far as like Google, like one of the things that people I think don't necessarily realize is that most of the technology that OpenAI software is built on is research that's come out of Google. So Google certainly has the like capability and team and talent to compete in this space, and I think that they're gearing up to do that. I think that there are business model challenges that sort of prevent Google from moving as fast as other players. Like it might like replace their search business and have very different economics and have a very different, like the business might have a very different shape from what they're used to. But if they make it a priority, I think Google can like probably can catch up and may even like have the technology that is close to being as good as what OpenAI has. They just haven't released it publicly for various reasons. So I definitely wouldn't count them out, but I think Microsoft is in a better position right now.
Now, last question here as we wrap up, just for our viewers, maybe just an open-ended question. How do you see AI impacting the future?
It's hard to say. It's a whole new world. I think we're all kind of finding that out one day at a time. The technology is moving incredibly quickly, and I don't think people can really predict. But if that's something that people are interested in, like what I would encourage you to do is just start building with these tools, and that means that sort of no matter what happens, you'll be in a good position to understand how it fits in with your job or your life or what you care about. Start building with it. Start just working with it day to day and seeing how it works. And as things change, I think it will become more clear how it will affect things.